Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another video. My name's Andreas and I'm a third year medical student at Riga Stradens University. Today I want to talk about sleeping versus cramming. We've all been in the situation where we stay up all night, study for a test that we probably should have prepared more for, but we decided to take the long route, the all-night route, and I've read some studies, did some research, and figured out that it's probably not the best thing to do for a long-term success. Let's start off with the amount of sleep that we should get when we're in our early 20s. So research suggests that the best amount of sleep for someone at the age of 22 is between 7 to 9 hours, which the better side being on the 9-hour side. If you get a bit older, or when you get a bit older, it has been researched that at the age of about 38 to 70, the amount of sleep we need actually reduces to about 7 hours a night. Building on that, there is an actually really interesting field of research which is done in genetics at the moment, where we might be able to prove that some people can sleep significantly better than other people. So that means that there is 5 genes that are coding in the genome for more effective sleep. So if we have a look at the brain and what it does during sleep, it pretty much has to process and create new synapses to make our short-term memory out of our hippocampus move on to our sort of long-term storage facility, which is in the prefrontal cortex. So if you imagine on a normal day, you would fill up your email box or your sending box in the hippocampus, and by the end of the day, what happens is you go to sleep and this information is then downloaded almost from the hippocampus to the prefrontal cortex. So that's why sleep is so important. But what these people have now, what the researchers have now been able to prove is that some people are better at transferring this information from the hippocampus to the prefrontal cortex, which essentially you can maybe familiarize yourself with saying that they've got a better internet line connecting the two parts of their brain. So what's very interesting is that if you do have these 5 specific genes that normal people don't, then you might actually only need 5 to 6 hours of sleep every night. You can go and check if you have these 5 genes in your genome, but gene sequencing is extremely expensive and it's probably not worth it at this stage of where you are. Moving on, I wanted to talk about some research done by the University of Pittsburgh, which correlates the amount of sleep we get to our ability to process informational and emotional knowledge. So they took a large group of people, about 150, and split them into 3 groups, and each of them were stimulated with a fear stimulation, which was done through an electronic shock, and a color that they saw at that exact same time. And afterwards, in an MRI machine, the subjects were presented again with that color, and it was checked if their brain had the same response or had a fear response. So in the 3 groups, we had one group that slept the whole night, we had one group that slept the first half of the night, and the last group slept the second half of the night. What was interesting about this research is we saw that the people that slept only half the night were unable to process the emotional fear of having this small electronic shock. So the next morning when they woke up, they still had a very large fear response in their brain when they were presented with this color. So this research suggests that doctors, soldiers, policemen, people that work in high stress environments and with very little sleep or interrupted sleep are less likely to be able to process the emotional baggage, essentially what they've been given. So you've got a higher chance of having post-traumatic stress disorder. A more relevant study that was done towards this specific subject was done at the University of St. Lawrence, where they took 111 college students and they mapped out the amount of sleep they had and their grades. So it must be said that, interestingly enough, and I thought this was very interesting, there was not really a big correlation between procrastination and people pulling an all-nighter. So obviously those that procrastinated have a higher chance of doing an all-nighter and studying as hard as they can. But also people that have anxiety before tests, that feel like they don't know the work well enough, will also study the whole night. And the conclusion of it was that studying all night actually equals lower grades, essentially. Now, we could be sitting in the point where you say, oh, well, if I go to sleep, then I will write my test and it'll be better the next day. But We've all been in the situation where it's 8 p.m. and you haven't opened a single book for the test that you have tomorrow. Obviously, if you go to sleep at 8 p.m., you're not going to ace the test. So I actually want to talk about some ways that we can, that you can increase your chance of having a successful all-nighter and maybe increase the effectiveness of your studying for the day that you need to cram in. So let's start these sort of strategies off with one of my favorite things that I love doing. There is a lot of research that's gone into midday naps and how it increases your ability to consume knowledge and process knowledge. So I'm an avid afternoon napper, and I'm going to say I do it for performance reasons, but I actually just do it because I like doing it. But the University of California did a study, and they have concluded that when you do a mid-afternoon nap of about 90 minutes, it is the same as if you were to sleep, well, not the whole evening, but you were to start this process. So in the beginning of the video, we spoke about how the hippocampus gets loaded up with information. So during an afternoon nap, we're actually able to download some of that information that we have in the hippocampus to the prefrontal cortex. And that process in the afternoon frees up more capacity for us to study and learn even more. It's very important that you must know that when the nap happens, or the timing of when you take this mid-afternoon nap, is very important, but I'm going to do another video on that, explaining exactly when to sleep and when to be awake, what is the most effective time to study during the day, so that you can set yourself up to strategically make your brain as efficient as it can. Now I'm getting back to what are the best strategies to surviving an all-nighter. Right, so now you're sitting there, you haven't studied, you definitely need to study all night. What is the best way to go about it? So interestingly, the sleepfoundation.org has a survival list for what to do if you have to pull an all-nighter. So if you are in the situation that at 8 p.m. you haven't started studying for the test that you have tomorrow, then follow these few little tips and they will get you through the night as efficiently as possible. So first of all, take advantage of caffeine stimulants. Don't overuse them. Don't drink 5 cups of coffee per hour, because that'll give you enormous side effects that will make you not feel good. But drinking a cup of coffee every few hours is proven to have a positive effect on your ability to process information. The well-rested brain is still better at processing information than a caffeine-stimulated brain, but it's all better than no stimulation at all. Stay very well hydrated. This comes with 2 benefits. So when you're very well hydrated, you feel good, you won't get a headache, but also every now and then it'll force you to get up and go to the toilet. Now that's more a side effect, but this standing up, moving to the toilet, and doing small little exercises such as stretching, walking to the kitchen, getting something to eat, all these things add up to keeping you awake and keeping you motivated during the evening. So let's talk about food. Our diet is very important to keep our performance at a high level. When you do an all-nighter, I'm sure we've all been there, you want to eat chips, you want to eat unhealthy, a nice burger, drink Coke, all these types of, very heavy, very nice food that make us feel very good. But for the purpose of staying up all night, these are not the right things to eat. So try and eat quite a healthy, balanced diet, not too heavy on your stomach, and try and stay away from snacking, because snacking makes your blood sugar go up, which will give you phases of being a little bit more hyperactive, and then your blood glucose level will crash and you will suddenly get very tired. So let's move on to something that's a bit more obvious, and that is keep the lights on. I found myself that when I study at night, I try and make sort of a bit of a romantic environment. And I think we all try and do that a little bit. We have a nice dim light on, you're looking at your computer screen, and the whole world sort of slows down and you feel like this is almost like a romantic relationship with studying. Well, to stay awake the whole night, that is not very positive. So you can have things like daylight stimulating lights that you can put in your room, or just keep the main lights on in the room. It really will help you. And if you've got studio lights, because you also have an aspiring YouTube career, you can put those on as well, because they're also extremely bright. Right. And one of the really big important things, you must double check your work. This guide is not just for studying, but doing for other things. Make sure that you are being accurate, because the more tired we get, the more we don't notice the fact that we're making mistakes. So if you've studied something, make sure that you're studying the correct information and that the information that you've maybe written down or summarized is accurate to what you're initially learning. Another good strategy for studying late at night is studying in teams. And I'm sure that you've also been in the situation where you and your friend have not studied. So it is advisable to do it in a small group, maybe a group of people that don't distract you, that don't take your attention away. Sit together, study together, and keep each other motivated. And remember what the goal is. So don't fill your brain up with panic and think that you can't make it. And rather think about what is the goal. The goal is to pass the test tomorrow, not to panic about how much information you have to study right now. So to summarize what I've said today, lack of sleep gives us a lower performance in general ability to learn and to regurgitate information. It makes us emotionally more volatile, and that is obviously not so good for your test the next day. But in the case that you do have to study the whole night, make sure that you study with the lights on, that you're physically active, you stay hydrated, and that your diet is in the space that you're in as healthy as it can be. All right, guys, that was another video from the McGregor Med channel. I hope you liked what you saw. Like and subscribe, and we'll be posting a lot more videos in the coming weeks on study tips and how to use your brain the most efficient way to make sure that you don't spend your whole day studying. Anyway, look after yourself. Peace out.